Alright guys, so we're going to be covering calorie surplus today, so it's going to be a calorie surplus 101 or bulking 101. So let's get right into it. So a calorie surplus is anything in excess of what your body needs to maintain its weight. So it could be as small as 20 calories per day, as much as 2,000 plus calories per day, while it may be more noticeable on a higher surplus or higher excess amount of calories consumed. Even the small calorie surplus you'll be in at 20 gram or 20 calories per day will still show itself up over the course of a year, because you'll still gain some weight, because if you're in a calorie surplus, there's no way you won't gain weight. So that's what calorie surplus is. In terms of in fitness, we generally use periods of a calorie surplus strategically to try and gain more muscle mass, and generally we accept that there may be some fat mass gained with it, but we try and use periods of calorie surplus or bulking to gain that new muscle tissue by overfeeding our bodies, that it would have more than enough resources to gain the excess or synthesize new muscle, so build new muscle. So that's what a calorie surplus is in terms of in general and in the fitness community. From this point onwards, I'm going to be talking about calorie surplus in terms of bulks or bulking. So I'm going to discuss the three types of bulks and the benefits and drawbacks to it and who I'd advise them to. Then I'll tell you what I do personally, and then maybe give you any caveats you need to know about at the end. So let's get into it. So the first type of bulk is a lean bulk. This is where you're more conservative with your calorie surplus, generally eating 50 to 200 calories extra per day. So for me, whose maintenance is around 2,600, I'd add 200, which would be 2,800 for my lean bulk calorie goals. Ideally, when you're gaining in a lean bulk, you're trying to gain a higher proportion of muscle to fat. So per pound you put on, you're being to gain 75% muscle, 25% fat. Again, these are rough numbers, but in terms of what you're trying to gain more muscle mass than fat. So generally, when you're lean bulking, you want to gain about a pound, maybe at most half a pound, ideally per month. And you're going to be gaining slower, but you'll be gaining more muscle mass in terms of proportion to the fat you put on. That should be the mentality you're going into. So you should be, with each pound that comes on, you should be looking in the mirror trying to see, all right, is it coming around my waist, or is it coming on as fat, or is it coming on as muscle? So the benefits of a lean bulk is that you'd gain a higher proportion of muscle to fat, which would mean that your body fat may actually drop down if you can keep the same amount of or percentage of body fat in terms of what you gain, as well as what your body fat is roughly around, because the sheer amount of muscle mass you would have put on will bring it down just in terms of percentage of your body weight. It also would make a cutting period or a shred a lot easier, because it would be a short duration, because you wouldn't have put on as much fat, so you wouldn't have as much to shred off. It does mean, however, that you will be gaining at a slower rate than the other two methods I will mention. But again, if the proportion of muscle mass to fat mass you put on will counteract that for some people. And the only other thing is you have to be a bit more conscious of the way you eat when you're on a lean bulk compared to the other two methods, because you need to make sure that you're not eating too much of a surplus most of the time, but you're eating enough of it that you're not just sitting at maintenance. Again, I advise this to people who are late intermediates or advanced lifters, because the rate at which you'll synthesize muscle tissue is slower or lower in people that have been training for a while, especially advanced and late intermediates. The rate at which you put on muscle is a lot slower than when you're just starting out, because your body gets sort of desensitized to the stimulus of training, and also there's only so much your body can naturally put on. So moving on to the second type of bulk is just a regular bulk, or just bulking in general, or just a bulk in general. This is where you're eating 300 to 500 calories of surplus. So again, for me, that would be 3,100 if I add in the 5 extra 100 calories on top of my maintenance. With this, you're likely going to aim to gain as much muscle as you do fat. So you're looking for every 2 pounds you gain, 1 pound to be muscle, 1 pound to be fat. Again, it's going to be a little bit harder to track this in the mirror, because if you put it on fat at the same time as muscle, you may not be able to see it, but ideally you'll be trying to put it on at the same rate. So if you're regular bulking, you're probably going to want to look to gain about 1 pound or 2 per month, and that at least half of that would be muscle. The benefit of this type of bulk is that it's quicker to put on muscle mass than a lean bulk, but it's not as fast as a dirty bulk, which will be the third method I'll mention. But you will gain more fat on a regular bulk than a lean bulk, however not as much as a dirty bulk. The drawbacks to this are basically just, you still have to be somewhat conscious of what you're eating. You may feel a little bit more full than usual, not always, but there's a possibility. And it's just a little bit more conscious again. Nowhere near as conscious as you'd have to be whilst cutting or in a lean bulk, but more conscious than you would have to be on a dirty bulk. I'd advise this to people who are beginners or early intermediates, just because the rate at which you'll synthesize muscle will be quicker than you were or will be as an advanced or late intermediate, and also your body may actually be able to use these extra calories to go to muscle, whereas as an advanced lifter, this bigger surplus may not actually be necessary, as your body may only be able to use so much as for muscle, and then the rest would go into your fat stores. Again, if you wish to do this as an advanced lifter and you know, okay, I'm going to gain a fair bit of fat with it, you're more than welcome to do so. But for me, I'd advise it to people who are beginners or early intermediates. Getting into the third type of bulk is a dirty bulk. This is where you basically go on a seafood diet. You see food, you eat it. You feel stuffed and bloated all the time, pretty much. And you're eating well in excess of 600 calories plus per day of your maintenance. So for me, that'd be 3,200 plus calories per day. Again, the benefit to this is that you gain weight quickly, but the rate at which you gain weight in terms of muscle compared to fat is a lot worse than the other ones. Say for every pound of muscle you'll gain, you probably gain 3 pounds of fat, if not more, depending on how much of a surplus you're in. And this will lead to a longer cutting period than it would be on a regular bulk, and an extremely longer period compared to a leaner bulk. The benefits, again, is that you don't have to be conscious of what you're eating. You could eat this surplus in terms of junk food. It could be healthier food. It could be a mixture of both. It could be a lot of junk food with a little bit of healthy food. But with this, you don't have to be as conscious. However, when you're bulking, in terms of a dirty bulk, you're going to probably put your health at risk, just because you're simply trying to put on as much weight as possible, which means you may increase the amount of body fat, or you will increase the amount of body fat, and you probably likely affect your other health markers as well. And in terms of the body fat you'll put on, there's only a certain point you can get to before your body starts becoming less optimal for building muscle. So there's a certain level you can get to, around say 15 to 70% body fat for a male, where your body can synthesize muscle and is in more of an optimal state to do so, or top end of optimal. After that, your body just isn't as great at building muscle. It's it starts low if you're not giving it enough, and if you're giving it too much, it's low again. But in the middle, there's a perfect point. However, in a dirty bulk, you're pretty much on that higher end where your body's just leave me alone, stop putting fat on. So I wouldn't really advise this to anyone. If you're an extreme hard gainer and you're really struggling to gain weight on a regular bulk, I would say first assess if you're actually eating what you think you're eating. And then if that is true, then you could try this, but I'd advise you still to try the regular bulk route, just for basically maintaining your health. So those are the 3 types of bulks, who I'd advise them to, and the benefits and drawbacks of them. So what would I do personally? Personally, if I bulk now, I'd lean bulk, because I've tried the dirty bulk route. It was the first bulk I ever did. I didn't really know what I was doing because I was new to fitness at the time. It worked alright because I put on a fair bit of muscle, but I also put on a fair bit of fat, but my body was actually able to deal with it better because I was new to lifting. So like, you synthesize more muscle the first year you lift than any other year, so it's easier to do. I've tried it again, I guess, after that. It didn't really work out as it should have. I tried a regular bulk. The last bulk I did, I said I was going to start off lean and then I'd do lean bulking. It basically turned into a regular bulk, which near the end, or at the end, basically was a dirty bulk because I was just trying to get in the calories as opposed to looking at where that weight was coming on. So I've done both a regular and a dirty bulk, and neither is really a plausible strategy for me now because I'm now close to that advanced lifter side of things. So for me now, I'd go into a lean bulk if I'm going to bulk, just because I don't need that excess as I did before when I was like earlier in my lifting or fitness journey. And it's just a lot easier for my body to deal with, and I'd gain more muscle than I would in terms of proportion to fat. So for me, a lean bulk is probably the route I'm going to take if I'm going to bulk again, and take it very conservatively, starting off with a 50 calorie to 100 calorie bulk. So the only caveat I'd do when you're bulking is not set a number per se to what you want to do, what you want to weigh. So don't say you want to gain to 90 kilos if you have no care for how that is going to come on. Instead, look week to week, month to month in terms of what you're gaining and where it's coming. So that's one thing I'd say. Make sure you're looking at how the muscle's coming on or how the weight's coming on. Is it just fat or is it muscle or is it a mixture of both, depending on what route you're taking? And then just see how it's going on month to month, and it will take care of itself in terms of your end goal at your bulk, because you may end up heavier or lighter than you think you need to be, but once you get to the end of bulk, you'll know. Anyways, guys, if you've enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, can you do me a favor and smash that like button? Subscribe if you're not already, and ring that notification bell so you never miss another video. Share this with your friends and family if you think it'd be helpful or entertaining or informative. And most importantly, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.